Hi, Andre.
Hi, Pat. Hi, Steve.
Hi, Stephen.
Hi, Pat.
This
Hi,
is
Andre.
our day on the stage. So glad to be with you, two masters of it
So
all.
am I.
Same
Oh
here.
my God! Thank you for being here. They went way out of their way to come in here today. Andre and Stephen and the '70s and nighttime fashion glamour. You know, it's sort of a tingly situation we were in because we all loved it passionately, like, oh my God, let me get out of this house and put something on. It's like, it starts very young, you know, when you think about yourself and where you want to be and all the people that you admire, but you haven't met them yet because we all kind of grew up together. But the inspiration came from long, long ago, the history of fashion. I think we saw it in our parents and our grandparents and Stephen's grandmother's mother, his sister, me, my mother. And where did they get it? Who knows? I think it was a culture or something. And there was a time and there were decades. And then back to the 70s, up to the 70s, from the beginning of the century of 1900s, not this century. So here we are in the new century talking about things that happened long ago, but things that made us inspired to keep going because beauty in the eye of the beholder starts with yourself. And you look in that mirror and you think, what in the world am I going to do with myself? Which is what my story is all about. I didn't know what to do until my mother said to me, if you don't put some eyeliner on, you're going to die an old maid. I said, and I thought I was going to be a designer, and I was covered in paint in the 60s. Before the 70s rolled around, I met Stephen Burrows, who saved my life, and Andre with his super style. But tell me something about you.
Well, I'd like to talk about you and Stephen.
The 70s, yeah, tell us.
Well,
About
the
Stephen.
70s were what I would consider today the golden age. And I think we are the relics of the golden age. You think of Elizabeth I, in relative to the time in history she lived, we are equivalent to Elizabeth I. The 70s was the last moment when fashion really reigned. There was the golden age of Yves Saint Laurent and Halston. On the continent, Yves Saint Laurent was the most influential designer. And in America, Halston was a disruptor of elegance. When I first came to New York in 1974, my dream was to meet the people that moved fashion. Let's begin with Deanna Vreeland, Carrie Donovan, Halston, Joe Eula, the entire Halston clan, Stephen Burrows, Bobby Breslau, Elsa Peretti, and of course, Pat Cleveland. Oh! But I had met Pat Cleveland, and she does not remember this. But my connection to Pat Cleveland began when, in my senior year, I went on a tour of Europe, on an international group tour from Brown, and I was in Paris coming up on the overnight train from Italy, and there in the morning, at the crack of dawn, stood Pat Cleveland standing in a taxi queue. In those days, we did not have waiting cars. People stood in a queue in a taxi at the Gare du Nord. And I'd seen so many beautiful pictures of Pat in Vogue. I'd seen pictures of her in the Vogue observation pages of Carrie Donovan, who was a great friend of mine. I'd seen pictures of Pat in the main pages of Vogue in color by Mr. Penn, beautiful red dress. And there was Pat standing off the night train from Italy in goody two-shoes platforms, wedgies.
Thank you.
Art Deco, crepe de chine hot pants, about that much, and a beautiful flounce shirt, and a fabulous 40s hat with a veil. And this was an image of me, of true glamour. She was arriving in Paris, and she had to dress up. She represented by dressing up to get off the train. And I went to the queue, and I said, oh, you're Pat Cleveland. I just think you're wonderful. And that's all I said. And then about 5 nights later, I saw her dancing at the club in the right bank. Was it not Club Set? It was another club.
Set.
It was another club that we used to go to.
Oh, dear.
If you forgot the name.
I forgot the
But she
name.
was there with Karl Lagerfeld, and I don't know how I got there, but I was at that club. But to make a long story short, Pat was very, very important in the 70s as a muse. She transcended all the great houses of great design and style. Saint Laurent, Karl Lagerfeld. She was a great muse of Karl Lagerfeld. She spent summers in Saint Tropez. She was at all the shows, and then she'd rush back to New York. And there she'd be Stephen Burrows and Halston, Naomi Sims. And by the way, in the 70s, before I came to New York, you could read the Vogue and you knew what the world was in terms of style and fashion. Every page just sang with great style. And Pat used to have a picture. I think she must have been at the Maxims for the Versailles party.
Versailles party.
With a big ostrich fan. What's that?
Ostrich jacket that Stephen made.
Ostrich fan?
The jacket?
No, it was a fan. You had a
Oh,
big...
that fan, that's another story. Oh, my God.
what is the story? Tell
That
us.
red feathered fan that Stephen Burrows made for me before I went to Europe. He says, you have to have this fan, Miss
Oh, that's
Cleveland.
amazing.
He always called me Miss Cleveland, and he would make dresses with very long trains on the back, and they were so lightweight. They were like featherweight. You felt as though when you put that dress on, you were just going to go up into heaven in them because they were so lightweight, and they were made out of matte jersey. And he had these prints on the fabric, and my dress had clouds all over it. I was on cloud 9, and the music was like, cloud 9, you can be what you want to be. And he put the red feathered fan in my hand, and I thought I was Gypsy Rose Lee.
Well, so
I had no intention of being a fashion designer.
Oh, pick up your mic. Talk close to your mic.
I started out wanting to be an art teacher, and I went to college for art education. It never crossed my mind to be an art fashion designer until I had to choose my major in the second year. And in that school I went to in Philadelphia, Museum College of Art, the only fashion class was in the economic section of the school. And they took us on a tour of the school one day, and I just thought I'd try my hand at fashion design. So I switched schools and went to FIT instead of taking art education. I took fashion apparel. And that's how I got into fashion design.
And so there I was at Art and Design, the high school for all the young artists like Calvin Klein and Antonio Lopez, and everybody went there, Stephen, myself, and everybody. And Stephen had already been in FIT, and somehow I was the mistake that arrived at his studio in 1969. And I was supposed to be Norma Jean Dard, and I was up at Vogue, and Carrie Donovan, who was the editor of, she had always done Vogue's own boutique,
Yes.
where she would go out and find these new talents. Well, she mistakenly sent me over to Mr. Burrows' studio, and it was like going to the Wizard
The
of
day
Oz.
I was born.
It was the day she was born.
On your birthday.
Muse, well, it was my first really strong influence. It was like my sketch walked off the page. I had been sketching this girl that I didn't even know, and it turned out to be Pat.
And I was dreaming of clothes that I didn't even have, and they turned out to be Stephen's designs because they were so perfect. And I was in art school, and when I saw his board and I saw the drawings, I said, "Give it up, girl. He's the best." And I said, "I'm never going to stitch another piece of fabric because he's doing it so perfectly." He made these lettuce hems on the dress, and they were like so flirty, and he cut everything on the bias. I mean, that's high class. Everything should be on the bias. And he did it, and I just felt like I could fly. And he was so musical in his way of draping.
And so, Pat, you and Stephen both were part of the great history of fashion, international fashion, with the fabulous Versailles battle in Paris
My God.
in November of 1974, was it? Yes.
It was
73. 73. And of course, Robin Gavon, our Pulitzer Prize fashion journalist, has written a great book on it.
Oh, it's great.
But describe, I've often heard Beth Ann talk about how you, in your segment, the Stephen Burrows segment, took the show to the level that it was supposed to be, that you just you almost twirled off the stage, and when you got to the edge of the stage, you knew it to stop.
Well,
Describe
we girls were supposed to just, Yeah, that was.
Oh, it was the hall, so it doesn't matter.
But we did some twirling, and we were the American girls that came out with the energy, with the music behind us, because they didn't have that James Brown and what was the other one? Love Unlimited
And Barry White. Barry White.
We had the music that made Paris want to embrace us and fall in love, because they were just in a trance when they saw the simplicity of the clothes. Stephen brought out all of these black girls walking with the nice booties, and we walked, and we just made ourselves present, and we started the voguing. We started the voguing when we posed at the edge of the stage, and it was like the fashion follies.
Did you all realize how important it was when you were actually living in the time frame of that event?
No.
No,
Think
we
it would last
didn't.
this long?
You don't know.
Well,
You're just an innocent,
You
right?
don't really know that you're in making history
Yes.
or something.
But you were so young. Did you really realize? Did you think this is we've arrived at Versailles, the history of Versailles, the history of France,
No,
French
Oscar
couture?
and Halston did.
Oscar and Halston knew,
But we realized that we were in a spectacular
But you
moment.
were just young and fabulous, and then running around with Hubert de Givenchy in the Hall of Mirrors.
God, I was
and
in
Marisa
love. I fell in
Barrington.
love with him. He was 6
You fell in
foot
love with him?
7, da da da. He was so tall, and there we were in the Hall of Mirrors, and he took me by my arm. And he said, "Let's walk together." And it was like that was our moment. And we looked in the mirrors, and we glided, and it felt as though there were like wheels under our feet, like in those spooky movies where the ghost comes into the room, and you're just walking, and then Cinderella, Karen Burinson's coming down the stairs, and Liza's like dancing all over the place, and Stephen's girls are dressed in feather bone hats, and everybody was just dressed to the top.
And in love. Ooh.
Love with each other, because this was our time to party. And the cherubs on the ceiling were like dancing. They came to life, those little naked ones with the wings.
And then, Pat, I remember.
And the candlelight was glowing, and we all got golden gifts.
And I remember when I got to Paris,
Yes.
and I lived in Paris a long time, and you were absolutely fabulous in the Saint Laurent
And he's so
haute couture
tall.
shows. You were used to come out in the haute couture. You remember you had that black strapless dress and had a green apron skirt? You know, the skirt
Oh,
became...
the picture of us in the book.
Pistachio, yes.
Yes, pistachio flavored.
Yes.
And tall Andre said, "Let's dance."
Skinny, tall and skinny.
He was a good dancer, and he was tall, and everybody wanted to hang off him because he was so
Hang
cute.
off him?
Yeah, and dance with you because he can move it, And he said, "Come on, let's go." And we were dancing backstage at Yves Saint Laurent at the end of the show, just partying
But
back
you were
there.
so serious and so beautiful on the runway. It was amazing.
Well, you have to be
It's the moment.
serious sometimes when you're
Yes,
carrying those
yes,
silken
yes, yes,
stitches.
But let's go
everybody
back a little bit.
works so
So
hard.
I was lucky enough to work for Andy Warhol, and then I rushed over I climbed up alone. I did not sleep with anyone. So I rushed from Andy Warhol to Women's Wear Daily, and Women's Wear Daily sent me to Paris to be the fashion director. And that I arrived in 1978, and I did the whole Saint Laurent Broadway suit collection, the whole thing. But then the person who gave me my going away party to Paris was Stephen Burrows.
Mr.
You remember?
Burrows.
A fried chicken dinner.
Fried
Remember
chicken
we had a fried
dinner
chicken
is
dinner?
the thing that we always
Elsa
wanted.
Peretti?
At my apartment.
Yeah,
Yes.
Elsa Peretti, Bobby
Tell us
Breslow,
about it.
Fernando Sanchez.
Yes, all the
Halston,
friends.
all of them
That
came.
was just like a regular night.
A regular night. Stephen
It was my
Burrows.
farewell dinner to Paris. And that was very important to me, and I always remembered you had a fried chicken dinner at your apartment with all the fabulous people.
And the good music.
And the good music. And then I arrived in Paris overnight, and I arrived with 13 unmatched pieces of luggage, and went straight to the...
Forbidden.
went straight to the... What was the restaurant that Carl used to go to and Eve used to be in the other banquet?
Capot?
Capole, La Coupole. La Coupole.
Historic La Coupole with
La
all those
Coupole, where they used
beautiful
to do the-
That's where
pillars.
you went first?
Of course.
Darling, I left the airport and Carl said,
Straight.
get in a cab and come to La Coupole.
Right.
So I dropped my luggage and then I went from my hotel
course he
to
was
La
dressed.
Coupole, where Carl had a banquet of 13 fabulous people.
It's
and
always
then
like
Eve had
that.
another banquet of 13 fabulous people.
Across
wars
from
of
each other.
The War of the Roses, there was this banquet over here.
One
and
banquet
that banquet
here.
over there, and they were
One
not
banquet.
speaking.
No. No.
And I had to gravitate back and forth. I had to jump
me
up
too.
and go
I
over
had to always
and balance the whole thing.
balance it out and make them
Yes,
happy
yes,
and love
yes,
each
yes,
other
yes, yes.
because they
They
really liked
yes.
each other
and
when
Lulu
nobody
was
was
a great
looking.
catalyst. Lulu was a great catalyst.
Yes.
And Paloma Picasso was
Yeah,
a great
she was
catalyst.
always there, and when
Paloma
her
was
father
always in
died, she
between the
bought
two
that
families.
Mercedes and didn't talk to the rest
And she
of us.
was was married in a dress by Saint Laurent.
I know,
and
she
then at
was.
night she was married in a dress by Carl.
And what about Lulu?
Lulu was dressed only by Saint
But
Laurent.
she was a fairy. She was always everywhere, putting jewelry on everyone when Eve was sitting there quietly, looking and breathing deeply and admiring all this energy.
But it wasn't just a moment of partying. It wasn't a world of party. It was a world of great glamour. As for
Yes.
instance, the club set, you would see Grace Jones
And
dancing on a
Tuxedo
table with no
Boys.
underwear. Or you would see the fabulous Diana Ross coming
Or
down the steps.
Liberace,
Or Liberace.
whom I danced for with the candelabras.
Liberace?
Yes, when my mother came to visit, she was sitting next to Liberace.
I never saw Liberace
and
in
I
Paris.
said, he was at the club set, and he came in and he was sitting there, said, dance for him. And I did my dance. And then I took the candles and put him down, and he said, oh, darling, I love it. He's gone now. So,
Well, so Liberace was in Paris. I didn't see him. But let me ask you something,
he's
Pat.
great.
In your book,
Yes.
in your book, you must buy the book because the book is a rich. By the way, Pat
Your
has
book
a
too.
second book coming out.
Your book
When
too.
she gave her draft for this book,
Yes.
it was they cut it down to that book. They have 2 more books coming.
yes,
So
I'm
she has
working on them now.
Now because there's so much to say. But
Yeah.
let me ask you, Pat, can I please interrupt?
Yes,
Let me ask you,
please.
Pat, in your book, you described this world of love and glamour and how serious we were all. We took our careers seriously, but we
Yes.
also had fun. We wanted to dress up.
Yes.
We wanted to go to the fashion shows.
Every
We
night.
Every
We
night.
wanted to be every night in the
Limo
fabulous
life.
cars.
Our feet
Kenzo,
matters.
the limousines.
Kenzo's a limo,
And the
Stephen and his
limousines,
party.
yes.
6 people in the back of the car. They
Yes,
don't
and
have the
Stephen-
stretch
and
limos
Stephen
anymore.
Stephen at Le Jardin.
Oh my gosh.
Disco booth. In
Oh
a
my
disco
gosh.
booth.
And it's
and
so
then on Fire
wonderful.
Island with the
Oh, Fire
fabulous car
Island was heaven
and a fabulous house.
heaven for designers. They would outdo each other interior decorating for
Halston,
the weekend.
Calvin Klein, Fab, and Stephen.
And they all got inspired by each other. No
And they were
cars
very
allowed.
inspired by each other.
Yes, and they
And you
partied
could cross
together.
into the other family.
And the doors weren't
But
locked.
we never talked about fashion.
No, they
Never
just
did.
danced. What was that, the bump?
the Botel. The Botel.
Hotel. Oh my God. And Calvin and all these dictators' sons would come up from Cuba and party. Oh my God. I said, how did you get here? He said, my father's a dictator. Oh, good. Go to the Botel. Go dance. Forget about that stuff. Oh my God. And Hemingway was there in the hammock, and we were making those
Fire
sandwiches.
Island was the dream place for all the artists.
Fire Island
The
was fabulous
artists.
because Stephen had a fabulous house, and so
Oh
did
my
Calvin
God.
Klein.
Glass and wood.
But
Steve-
all the
hammocks.
artists would come there.
Yes, yes.
On the weekend.
It was
Yes.
very free. It was a
Yeah.
very free place.
And the water planes and the ferry boats. Everybody, the minute you hit the ferry boat, it's little
And everybody had
dogs.
beautiful bodies. I remember Stephen used to run around in a bikini looking very
A
fabulous.
Speedo.
A Speedo.
Yes.
Well, I would call it a bikini.
Well, that's Brazilian.
Well, it's a bikini.
Yeah, Brazilian bikini Speedo.
Yeah, we went to Brazil and I came back
Yeah,
and made
yeah,
it.
yeah,
made
Yes.
it.
Oh my God, that was.
Now,
I
Pat,
still
let's
have
let's
it.
let's let's digress here, darling, because your beautiful memoir, tome, whatever it is.
Thank you.
Now,
You're-
tell
you-
your love, the love life. Let's talk about some of your fabulous, famous lovers, such as
That's-
Mr. Warren Beatty.
Well, you know, dreams
How was
do come
that?
true.
That was a dream come
How
true.
was
It was. He was a dream come true, actually. Oh, you girls,
Was
do
he a
you remember
gentleman? Was he a
Splendor in the
gentleman?
Grass? Anybody remember Splendor in the Grass? Wasn't he gorgeous? And
Was he
I
a gentleman?
Oh, he was exactly the romance you always hoped for.
Did he send you flowers?
He sent me flowers, and he took me out, and he couldn't wait to see me every time he came to town.
And what are some of the other great beaux you had? I'm so sorry, Paul, to bring this up. Where's Paul? the
Where's
husband?
Paul? But he's the greatest beau of all, my
Okay.
husband back there. All those other ones had to come first to know that I had to move forward. Move forward. No, don't say that. Anyway, back to we're naughty. But it's not naughty, it's just who's in your life, you know, and all in the fashion world, it started blending. It wasn't a private affair anymore. Everyone started entering the fashion world. The musicians, the actors, you know.
The
and
way
then-
fashion embraces all cultures.
Yeah, and it's
because
just-
fashion does embrace
it
all the
becomes
music today.
So
yes.
international. You know, first we were the jet set in the 60s and the 70s. You know, they had those big planes that we used to go over for the collections. And all your friends would be on that 747 Boeing with the first class upstairs and downstairs, and then either you'd be in chicken class or whatever, depending.
And then, darling, didn't Halston used to make special wardrobes and give everyone a special suitcase?
We went around the world.
With your own wardrobe?
Yes,
your own
first
personal.
class with those sleeper bunks, and we had our all set of that
And
luggage.
matching suitcases,
Matching suitcases and wardrobes, and a schedule of who's going to wear what when. And we all matched. And it was that suede, that chamois, what was that?
Ultra suede. Ultra suede.
He had just discovered it from Issei, and he made everything in it, his furniture, his suitcases, our clothes.
Yes,
We
yes.
couldn't get enough ultra suede. I still have one of those.
Now, Pat, when were the moments that you got to pose in the famous eider-down jacket of Charles James in between with Antonio?
Well,
Did
that was-
Antonio inspire that? Did he inspire that?
No, what happened was Antonio was making illustrations for Charles James, the great master couturier of the 50s. And he would, design for the ladies of society, but he had these collections, and he lived at the Chelsea Hotel, and he lived in a room that he slept under the patterns of a room full of patterns of years and years and years of creating designs. And I would stand on this table, and Antonio Lopez, the great illustrator, would sit on a little chair with all of his pencils, and Charles would give us the lecture. Now, my dear, the woman's body is based on a wishbone. And I would be standing in a cage that he made of this dress, and the wishbones would be like going into my skin, and it would be the most marvelous pain I ever felt, being in the room with Charles James and Antonio Lopez. And Juan, his friend.
Juan, this is history. Pat is actually oral history. We are like Africans who are giving you oral history here.
Oh, that's our story.
I feel that we are like an endangered species because we lived the golden age.
We
lived the golden age,
I
and
was
we
saying-
are survivors of the golden age.
We lived
the
through it all.
70s were the golden. Thank you. Now let us. I think we've said enough. Let them ask us questions.
Please.
Because there's a time limit to everything. But let me just say
Well,
that
you
both.
can.
Whoa! Stop, darling. Let me just say, if you have the dream and you live your dream as Pat has lived, and she will tell you about it in the Muses. Her mother used to make her clothes to wear to high school.
Absolutely.
She was an outsider in high school, and then she had the world embrace her fashion, Vogue, style, Carrie Donovan, Halston, everything, Saint Laurent. And Stephen Burrows. If you have it, it never can be taken away from you. And you will always be. You are still a survivor. And about 2 years ago, even I had Tom Ford photograph you for the cover of
That was
a
amazing.
Russian magazine, Numero.
It was provocative.
She's still a muse, whether she's on the runway or not. And her story is great. Stephen's story is great. So we're thrilled to
And
be
your
here
story.
to share our little vignettes of stories. So you have questions? Thank you. Questions from you all now. Questions? Don't be afraid. We don't bite.
Or share something
Share something.
about yourself.
Questions? You want to ask a question? Come. Yeah.
No, I just want to say, I'm that's fashion. Just to see I just showed Versailles 73 in class as well as fashion history, and the students were just in.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. Yeah.
She personally aired
Yes.
it, and she was just sharing information about, she goes, how it changed fashion literally, it did change fashion forever. It's not that stupid cliche, everybody says, oh, change. You guys all really did. It's an honor for us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
you
you.
very much. Lipstick.
You want to ask a question? You're shy. Ask a question.
Yeah.
He is our student, and he is the best fashion, I feel confident that
Well, be proud of him.
Kevin.
Well, I'm sure you've covered this in the books and Versailles 73, but I want to know what was like your true experience of like going back, or going to Paris and then like just like almost like a bullet going through that thick air of what is French over before, like going against like the houses of Marc Bohn for Christian Dior, Pierre Cardin.
Going up against the Dior, Givenchy at the Ball of Versailles.
Yeah.
And all those French designers, showing those big, grand operatic scenes. And then
It was horrible. It was horrible.
It was horrible.
It went on for 2.5 hours. It was horrible. And we were over in a half hour.
Fast.
It's over.
Fast track. Barry White.
Yeah, fast
And
American
we wrecked
style.
them. We wrecked them. It was really great.
No dusty curtains for us or backdrops or scene or nothing.
No sleighs and carriages. And
No hippopotamus and stuff like that,
But we did get to meet Josephine Baker, which was a great experience.
Beautiful. She's
Saint
lovely.
Laurent told me I made beautiful clothes. I made my trip for me. It made the trip.
And those memories can take you straight all the way through your life. If Mr. Saint Laurent said that too, Mr. Saint Laurent, absolutely,
Seen
I
your
miss Mr.
clothes.
Saint Laurent today. And I very often think about, most designers would not tell you, but they couldn't be where they are if there's a little bit of Saint Laurent in everyone. And there's
And a little bit of Stephen in
And a
Saint
little bit of
Laurent.
Stephen, and a little bit of Halston, and a little bit of Madame Gray.
Yes, please.
Yes,
I have a question for you. First of all, thanks so much. You guys are incredible. And I
thank you. Thank you.
I want to ask you about what you feel about diversity in fashion that somehow seems to be going backwards these days. I mean, when you guys were at Versailles, that was like an amazing moment where everything was coming together, and now it seems to be all sort of going back. Do you have any comments?
The answer is love. Everything is answered by
It's
love.
love.
Of its
And
personality.
we came from the love child, love people, We
Yes.
came up through
And
that.
it's the world. The world reflects itself. It turns a mirror unto itself. For instance, last night, Beyonce performing for Hillary Clinton at that free concert was a moment that the election, the campaign, it seemed like hope and aspiration. I got as energized by that one concert and Hillary's response to it, because she said, "This is America." And that is, Beyonce is America. And that was an amazing, thank you. That was an amazing concert with so much energy. And the fact that she respectfully wore a pantsuit
Thank you.
and performed in a pantsuit,
Thank you.
covered herself up,
Yes.
and
brought
the
her up.
wigs were flying. The wigs were literally flying in the air. But
They always
she
fly.
was amazing.
And that's the energy.
And that's the energy. And I sat there, and it was love. I felt the love that Beyonce put into that concert, and I felt that Hillary Clinton felt the love she felt that finally, in the last days, she had hope. She was grateful for this. So you just make your little effort. Everybody makes a difference. One soul can make a
Be
difference.
individual
Be
and see
individual.
yourself as the wonderful
As a
person that
catalyst
you are, and
for
just
change.
go out there and,
And
wear some
follow your
clothes.
dream.
Wear some clothes. Go put on a hat.
Yeah,
put
a
on
smile, a smile.
The
or just
smile.
Beyonce, look, she was dancing backwards last night.
in high heels.
She was doing James Brown and Michael Jackson all in one step. I said, what is she? I was
And tough.
mesmerized.
It's very
Mesmerized.
tough.
And the wigs were flying, literally.
So we need some more of that, pump it up, dress it up, feel good, a day up, a day down, but whatever, you're still beautiful inside. That's the diversity, up and down, up and down.
Questions? You with all the books. I signed Joseph. You have a question?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. We go back with Zandra. And by the way, Zandra's a dear friend of mine. And I think Zandra Rose is one of the greatest designers that ever lived. And she...
Yeah. I was just with her in London for my book signing.
And she never changes. People who have the original moment of whatever it is, their gifts that they give, never change. You've not changed. You've not
It's a
changed.
spark of life.
There are evolutions. We may go bigger or smaller, but we don't basically change, because when I came, I'm the same person I was when you first met me. Don't you
Yeah,
think?
you totally are fun.
Totally.
Totally
And
fun.
Zandra is that way too.
Yeah, and they're just like children, blossoming.
yes,
We're all blossoming
because-
towards every good feeling and joy that we can get.
Honesty, yes, thank you.
And we like to scribble, I like to
Yes.
draw and
you know
scribble.
what it is? Andy Warhol, he looked at the world, at the wonder of a child. You must always be curious and keep the wonder of a child. If you look at the world with the wonderful innocence of a child, it will inspire you. You may be critical about some things, but when I get very critical and negative, as I just was about Pat's shoes, and I said, oh, how hideous, the anti-beauty. I
He doesn't
remembered,
like pain. He likes romantic.
I obsess on shoes. I remembered I'd given her a beautiful pair of Prada shoes that she said she didn't wear.
And they're
Why?
never going to wear out. They're never going to wear out because they take such good care of them.
Joseph.
Okay, I thought about a question.
Yes.
So each of you have had such an impact on the fashion world and the communities locally where you are. What I want to know is, and I'm sure that that's inspired a lot of us,
Meeting Stephen
Eating Pat.
Meeting
and Andre.
Stephen and Pat, and most important, the moment that Deanna Vreeland embraced me.
Right.
She did. She embraced us all, actually.
Yes.
She did.
There was nothing like her. She was like the goddess of the empress of fashion. She saw everything in the 20s. You know, she's the swan.
Pat, let the girl answer the question, please.
Yeah.
Thank you all for being here and talking with us.
Yes.
You mentioned that you feel that you guys came up in the golden age of fashion. With regard to fashion, where it is right now, what do you think is maybe missing, or was there too much of that to maybe this is not the golden era?
What's missing?
Personality.
What's missing?
Personality.
Personality is missing. And people do not embrace individuality anymore. I think there's a bit move towards corporate domination, perhaps,
Striving and struggle.
and power and money.
Yeah.
And the money counts. And if you are an individual, you know, there are people in garrets, like in the 19th century, Charles Dickens, in Brooklyn, making extraordinary clothes. Andre Walker is in his house in Brooklyn where he grew up with his mother, and he is making clothes. He has sleeves that are like Madame Gray. He doesn't even know it. And he is not pushing himself on anyone. There are a few of his suits over at the Dover Street Market. He's happy if he makes one suit every 3 months. But he's an extraordinary man. You know, individuality is missing. And then the greed of the world. But then there are moments when Beyonce, the greed, for instance, when this whole turnover last year, Lanvin, Albert Albaz was a great designer. Suddenly he's out. Hedi Slimane is out. The carousel of designers, it's dizzying. I don't know where to go. I don't know where to go. So I get up in a fetal position and just thrive on my memories.
It's good to do that
Well,
sometimes.
the memories are greater than what's happening today.
No, you have a question. What is that you're wearing? Gucci, Gucci, Gucci. You are head to toe Gucci. Stand up, darling. She's got that damn Gucci sneak on. Turn around. Gucci everything. Gucci, Gucci everything. Oh! Is your whole wardrobe Gucci, darling? It's beautiful.
It's sad.
And she's got the Gucci slides. Oh, Gucci
Gucci
tote.
bag, Gucci shoes, and the shoes.
What is Christmas morning like at your house?
Cool.
Question.
Very couture.
The designers we've been discussing, the designers that you, I don't say grew up with or whatever, but were in this crowd and ilk with, and they're household names for anybody that certainly knows anything about fashion. And many are deceased. And so now with the fashion designers we have now, as a follow-up to what she was saying, what's missing is individuality and this personality and individualism. And now, who would you say from the crop of designers we have now that you think will be able to discuss in 30 years or 40 years and have conversations about where people
I
will
got you.
admire them like the designer, like yourself, like the designers that are being talked about today?
I think you have Zach and Mark and Tom and
Ralph Rucci's.
Ralph
Ralph
Ferrucci's and amazing because he's like a tailor and he can the chicest.
And Azadine.
Stephen and Azadine.
Oh,
I was
thank
just
you.
with him in Paris, and the designers who actually make the clothes
Who sew and make
and
their
sew
clothes.
and make and iron, and they're really into the
And patterns, and can stay up at 4 o'clock and do this tracing on the paper.
Yeah, and
cut
actually
the
do it
pattern,
all.
and then fit the dress.
those are the real designers.
But I think the greatest designers are the individuals when people express themselves through fashion. For instance, you have this obsession with Gucci, and it works because you went all out. You got the snake and the butterfly and everything's going on there, darling. Insects, you're insect ridden. I hope that snake doesn't bite you at night. But when you go shopping, you make your own expression of what fashion is, and you must have the confidence, whether it's just the best coat or the best scarf or the best pair of shoes or the best hat. You make the fashion. When you have exposed to it, you become a very, very wonderful template for style, and people will observe you for what you are in fashion. And that's what fashion can give you. It can give you an expression. It's a template for an expression of the individual. And I was very lucky when I didn't even know my career was going to take it the way it did. But I was thrust up there in the Saint Laurent couture house covering the Broadway collection in 1978, and then Paloma Picasso's wedding in May of 1978, and then Anna Piaggi, and it was just all happening. And then all these people still remain in my life, the people who remain. You know, they became friends for the rest of my life. But I was fortunate enough to meet Madame Gray, who is an unsung heroine of great technique and style.
That was my
Madame
first.
Gray is a very, very important designer. Let me just say, if you have the privilege to go to the FIT archives, Miss Valerie Steele has an amazing archives. And let me just say, in my last 4 weeks, there's an upcoming show called Black Fashion Designers, of which Steve will be represented, and Andre Walker. But I was down there researching, and they asked me to help, and we were having a conversation, and one of the curators said to me, "Oh, we have these wolf trousers of Madame Gray from 1938." And I said, "What?" And I said, "No, wolf? She was skiing in the Swiss Alps on wolf trousers? I must see them." I doubted they were wolf. Madame Gray was not making wolf trousers in 1938 because they had the war. Unless she was crossing the Alps herself on foot, there was no need for wolf trousers. They were rationing things. So I said, "Could you please bring down those wolf trousers?" And the wolf trousers were Madame Gray, Haute Couture, 1968. It made more sense. The hippies, the moments. She was making wolf après-ski pants. And who bought them was Isabel Eberstadt. And Mr. Eberstadt donated the wolf trousers. The wolf trousers of Madame Gray, the capes of Madame Gray, the dresses of Madame Gray, everything is just, it reflected the personality of Isabel Eberstadt. I did not know her well, but she was part of that world I came into. But I didn't cross her circles, but I would have loved. But I see her through her clothes.
And that was the first woman I went to meet when I went to Paris for my
Isabel
first.
Eberstadt?
No,
Madame Gray.
Madame
Madame
Gray,
Gray.
because I had studied her in school, and she was the first go-see I had, and I actually met her. And she was a small woman, and she wore a turban. And she put her goddess dresses on me of chiffon, and they looked like the pillars of the Greek pillars.
Yes,
and I
yes.
felt like a goddess, and it was wonderful. I did her show in her salon very quietly with
Beautiful,
ladies of
beautiful.
society, and it was very quiet and very peaceful.
Any other questions? Yes.
At this conference, we've spoken a lot about the influence of online and bloggers and social media. How can you feel about the influence of editors and maybe yourself on designers back then?
I have no comment except that I know that social media is important, but I think I love social media. I love the Instagram, and I Twitter sometimes. But I know it's important. Don't ask me. Pat, what do you think?
I love it. I love it. I can keep up with my friends and know what they're doing. And the wonderful thing is when you arrive in another country, they say, "Oh, darling, I saw you were there and there and there, and I saw you were there." And so then you don't have to talk about it. You can just have a good time where you are, and you can keep up with what they're wearing.
Information for me.
That's really
Much information.
Well, we should be in a movie. Yes.
well. We are in some movies.
We
We should have our own movie, right? Well, I'm working on that.
should be in a movie.
Yeah, I'm working on that.
Yes. Oh, you can do that. Work it out. Work it out. Yes.
Oh, it says, could you talk about now your next generation
Oh, how beautiful.
Well, that was. Yeah.
Marcus?
Yeah, that's a wonderful thing. This shooting that we did for Neiman Marcus with the roof and Avador.
And that's where
it
the
was-
great moment of diversity.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And it's just the age, it's the age and you think you start out blossoming as a young girl, and then you go through fashion, and then you have a daughter, and then you're on the other side, like you're the fruit or the root or whatever, and then she's like coming out, and you just feel so happy because, this time when you can survive through something so intense as the world of fashion, which is so immediate, and then you still have happiness about it. There must be something good in it, and she's finding the good in it by meeting the wonderful artists like Stephen and Andre and Ralph. She was Ralph's fitting model for a while. She learned so much, and it was just, that's the intern you want to be. You want to go through there and just experience the beauty of these creative visualization moments with these artists, visionaries. So she's having it, I have had it, and it's still going on. It's so strange. It's a love story for fashion, family, really.
Questions? Are you tired? I think, do we have a time limit? Do we have
Yeah,
to stop?
we don't want to wear them out. Yeah, yeah,
What?
yeah. Yeah.
Mr. Burrows, I work at the Texas Fashion Collection, which is a museum at a university, and almost all the students that come through our space love your pieces.
Oh,
They see
thank you.
such life and energy in them, and I'm wondering if you would have any advice about your inspiration or energy in your design career that I could pass on to them.
Well, I just did what I wanted to see in front of my face. It was not dictated by anything other than that, except I didn't like anything with linings. I didn't like anything that wasn't comfortable to wear, and I tried to put that into the clothes. My love for color came mainly from my mother and father. My father was an artist who went around the clubs of Harlem doing caricatures of all the people and the singers and the musicians, and I would be sitting on his lap while he did these watercolors of the nightlife in Harlem, where I'd come every weekend to spend the weekend with my father and my grandmother. And I guess deep down, that's how I got into it. Both my grandparents, my mother's father and my father's mother, the two grandmothers were sample hands at Hattie Carnegie. And I guess that's where they met, and my mother and father met through them. And my grandmother was the first person to teach me how to sew. I wanted to make a dress for my girlfriend who lived upstairs, and it was her birthday, and I wanted to make her dress for her favorite doll, and that's how I learned to sew. But I didn't want to be in fashion. Had not a clue. I wanted to be an art teacher, and turned out I ended up in fashion,
Yeah, you always do something different.
which has made me very happy. I love working with fabric. I love picking new colors, and it was just a joy to do. And then I met Pat, who gave me inspiration. She's like my forever woman, my every woman. I could design anything and put it on her, and it would look beautiful. And that's what made me happy at the time, and still does today, now even through her daughter. Still, they're both muses to me, and I couldn't be happier.
Thank you, Stephen. Yeah. Thank you.
Over there, the hand, yeah, sir, please.
I did go to school like a lot of the people in the audience, to a fashion school. I went to school for architecture, and that was my first passion. When I was a kid, I wanted to be an architect based on the fact of Michael Brady. And so a friend invited me to design some clothes for her for a hair competition, and I didn't have money, so I started going to Lowe's to get and find materials. And the greatest thing happened. I fell in love with finding those materials that are offbeat and unconventional to start making clothes. What advice would you give a 65-year-old reinventing themselves to go into fashion and accessory design? I left you speechless.
Yes.
I think just keep doing it and surround yourself with young people who will appreciate your talents, and go out and party in the clothes and be seen. Don't stay home. And always make sure you're out and about and communicate and let people know you're there, because it's not about your age, it's about your talent.
Just never give up your dream.
Exactly.
Keep on trucking. Keep making your beautiful bags.
And as long as you enjoy it, that's the important thing.
I keep in my head the photo that, a picture of Anna in the McQueen studio looking at the Horn of Plenty, and this look on her face of this this total wonder. And I keep thinking that that's what I want to have happen.
You have you have a youthful aura, so you don't have to even bring up your age. I mean, you look like I thought you were 30 years old.
Yeah, 29. 30.
So you just keep on, yeah,
Yeah.
just keep getting up, keep getting up and making those beautiful bags. You know, Van Gogh was dead before he became famous.
Van Gogh. As my mom says, you have to die to be famous.
That's no reward, but still, you know, his legacy. Maybe that was wrong.
No, just sell over the internet, and get some people alive around you. Not just that, Go out and do what we do, party with the artists. All the artists went out and partied together.
Pat, is life a party for you?
It certainly is. The minute I open my eyes, I say, I'm alive. Oh, let me go party with let me find somebody to love, Not in that way, Andre. Oh, God. Paul, tell him.
Well, tell her to filter her.
Tell her. You know what I mean. He has his book
I
out.
did one already.
It's out there. But we all write about him.
I
He's
can't
in my
remember
book.
everything that happened. Pat remembers everything. I can't.
I'll probably
I don't
end up
remember.
writing his book.
Some people are so drunk they can remember the 70s.
It went so fast.
Listen, a friend of mine, a very important muse whom I will not name, said to them the other night, I was so drunk I don't remember the 70s.
And it's like they say, when you're having so much fun, time passes quickly. If you're miserable, it takes forever. But we've had a really good time with each other. And
We've had a really good time, and we continue to have a good time despite the uphill challenges.
Yeah,
To
well-
keep climbing at the mountain.
Yeah.
It's more difficult these days.
Just get a little
than it was in the 70s. I must say, I lived through the 70s, and it was a blast. But what is this? What's this called? The new millennials?
we're in another century now.
2016. I must say, it's not easy. 2016.
It's the beginning. It's only the beginning. Keep going.
We're 16 years into the 21st century, or the
Yeah.
22nd,
This-
21st.
I don't remember. I just hear. I'm here and I'm happy.
Oh, what do you want? Stop? Oh. Okay.
Oh, one question over there. Oh,
I'm sorry.
hi.
I was just going to ask, where do you guys see yourselves 10 years from now? Where do you guys see the fashion?
10 years from now?
In a hammock, writing more and more and more poetry, painting, enjoying my films that I'm making, and I'm just studying. I just keep studying and learning more. That's what you got to do to keep it happy.
She has the right outlook, doesn't she?
Well, when you've been looking through eyelashes all your life, it's kind of cool. You kind of see rainbows, Did you ever see that? Anybody look up to the eyelashes and you see rainbows? This is the kind of stuff we talk about.
Well, I was, first of all, when I knew I wanted to be a fashion editor when I was very young, because I was the only child. I grew up in the house with my grandmother. And I had a room, my grandmother could have made it a sewing room. She painted it Schiaparelli pink. I didn't know it was pink until I got to be a teenager. And she chose the color pink, and I just peopled that room with pictures from Vogue. So I didn't read Vogue in the week when I came home, but I read Vogue on Sundays and Saturdays. So on Saturdays and Sundays, after I did the chores, the chores you have to do what you hate, I would just live in the world of Vogue. And so I got a scholarship to Brown. I went to a state university in North Carolina, and I got a full-on scholarship to Brown. They pay for everything. And my world sort of opened up. I actually arrived in New York from Brown University in 1974. I have a master's degree in French literature and art, and someone said to me, you've just got to get in New York. I was applying to be a teacher at private schools, like 60 applications, and no one wanted to hire me. But then, you wrote letters. You didn't send resumes like today, like pictures and stuff,
Then you met
websites and stuff.
Stephen and
Yeah.
Peter Lester.
Yeah. So then I arrived in New York, and I met Andy Warhol, and I went to work for Mrs. Freeland. My education in fashion began before I arrived in New York. I educated myself because I lived through the pages of Vogue, the Carrie Donovan pages. When I wrote a letter to Carrie Donovan, I'd never met her. I was at Brown, and I said, "Dear Miss Donovan, could you please help me who discovered Pat Cleveland?" And she wrote me back. And she said, "I'm the person who discovered Pat Cleveland." So it was amazing. And then I came to New York and met Carrie Donovan, and then it was called the Cody Awards, and she was at the Cody Awards ceremonies, and I got invited to the ceremonies down in FIT. And then Carrie Donovan then took me to Joe Euless' house for the after party, where there was Halston,
Everybody was
Elsa Brady, Marina Sciano, Fernando Sanchez, the whole thing. So it was a dream come true. But that world was smaller then, it was different. And then when I got to Women's Wear Daily from Winterview magazine, I was accessories editor at the age of 20-something. I was making $22,000 a year. I didn't know what was happening. People were guiding me, but I had something to say, and I didn't open my mouth until I had researched. I had researched everything. I read everything. When I met Karl Lagerfeld, I had read every single thing there was to read about him, his love of the 18th century.
And you were matched because he read everything
Yes.
too.
So when I was taken by Andy Warhol, privileged to go with Andy Warhol, Juan and Antonio, and Fred Hughes on a Sunday in May of 1975. I'd just come to New York in 1974, in November, to meet Mr. Lagerfeld. I then had something to say. I had to interview him for Interview magazine. It was the Paris issue. Antonio and Juan were editing the Paris issue. And I didn't have any fear of anyone. I feared no one because I was thoroughly, thoroughly curious, interested in the things, the subjects. I loved Vogue. I remember the first beautiful color page of Stephen Burrows' World in the Observations page in Central Park. I remember every picture of Pat Cleveland, Lulu de la Falaise, Naomi Sims at a jukebox by Barry Berenson in a Halston dress, cashmere to the floor, halter back with a little baseball cap, playing the jukebox, running across the street in a fox fur cape. These pictures were my heroines. I didn't have pictures of naked women on the wall in my room, or footballers, or...
Elegance. Completely elegant. You were the most elegant.
Yeah, I just had pictures of people that you know who I loved also. It was very strange. A friend told me the other day, how in high school did I love CeCe Guest? My friend was telling me today, "Oh, you were so obsessed with CeCe Guest." I said, "What?" She said, "You used to talk about CeCe Guest all the time." And I can't remember how could I have discovered CeCe Guest. And then there I was talking about CeCe Guest in her Mambuche clothes. Then I got to meet CeCe Guest. But I know how I got to be obsessed
Because
with
you
CeCe.
appreciate ladies,
Because also I read John Fairchild's book on the fashionable savages. And there is a chapter on CeCe Guest and the Impeccables, and it's Isabel Erbestat and Jane Holzer and Jacqueline Deribe and all those people. And then I got to see Jacqueline Deribe. I got to go to the Jacqueline Deribe fashion show.
Kennedy.
I got to see her come into Paris, into the Yves Saint Laurent couture collections. In the couture house, Nan Kempner going for fittings at Yves Saint Laurent. I got to see the fittings of Betty Catrou.
Halston's too.
Hang out with Betty Catrou at this Club Set. Betty and Catrou and I used to go to Club Set and go behind the bar and stand behind the bar and just watch the dancers, We just stand there and look at them and just like be in awe. We were just like some sticks standing behind the bar.
Tall.
Slightly tipsy. But
It's the champagne.
the whole thing of the Fire Island, everything melted and merged into one. The Fire Island, when Saint Laurent came to New York and had the first Saint Laurent couture show, they were all hanging out at Le Jardin with Stephen Burrows. So the whole Saint Laurent crowd was hanging out at Le Jardin. Do you remember Le Jardin? Was it fabulous?
Yeah, but your education gave you
Fabulous.
the platform to come from.
Yes, and there are
you
no
had a
clubs
vision
like
as well.
people don't have clubs like Le Jardin. They had aluminum palm trees, and the boys and the girls wore goody two shoes,
Circus.
platform shoes. You remember the goody two shoes?
Goody two shoes were made out of cork,
Cork.
covered. They
Yeah,
were
corkies,
lightweight,
yes.
and they were covered in suede.
Yes.
And they were a little bit Carmen Miranda-like.
Yeah.
But when you danced in them, they made you bounce, and you were like 6'7" tall.
spray
So
paint
you
them
could walk
silver.
into a room and look over everyone's heads because you had those goody two shoes.
Remember
on.
we used to spray paint
Oh,
them silver?
God.
Yes.
Stephen used to take those shoes and change them. I remember the first Buster Browns I got. He made me wear Buster Brown, patent leather shoes, and goody two shoes. And I took those shoes to Europe, and nobody had ever seen anything
And you
like
you came off the train in the goody
with those
two shoes?
gold goody two
Gold
shoes.
goody two shoes and hot
those
pants.
blue, yes.
Little Art Deco hot
yes.
pants.
And those Stephen Burrows hot pants with stockings. And goody two shoes and a veiled hat.
And that was an image. You see Pat Cleveland, an American, arriving in Paris. That was historically relevant to me. She is a model. She was perhaps not the superstar model she is today.
Well, a
but
flagpole. I was more like in a
she was a flagpole, iconic image.
Waving the flag.
Standing, and the attitude she has now, the elegance. She was standing, waiting for the cab quietly with her little chariot, with her luggage, and she'd come up on the train. And then she was impeccably dressed with this veil and this 40s hat, 40s
It was
hat.
a dream. We all wanted to be 1940s movie stars. So you have to look at those films and things and to be inspired. The old movies, the new movies, whatever, the music, just take it all in, just be a part of that whole situation and then express it, and then find a mirror who could look at it. The person is a mirror. You're just mirroring all this information. It's like it comes in, you're like a sponge, you get the feeling of it, and then you want to be it.
I think we've talked enough, and I think people are.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Okay.
This may be the hardest job in the world at this very but I
We've-
have to do two things. One, I have to say, please will you sign books after Ralph's talk?
Yes.
We have lots of them, each of your books.
Thank you.
We would be thrilled to have that happen. And I know people would like to talk more with you. At the same time, we would also love to hear Ralph's talk.
Yes, please.
And I have to deal with the building closing down. If I could change that, I would.
Let's go.
But we have a terminus, so I'm going to say thank you for this.
Thank you.
We would love to have you.
Yeah, thank you. What time is it?
It's now almost 5.
Oh, that's fine. So,
5 to
Ralph.
5. I would like to hear Ralph.
You like to be a Ralph? Yeah, I have to stay. It's only polite to stay. No, it's more polite to stay for Ralph. I understand. Oh, no, we had to go.
It's just
Yes, you've got to move on. Yes. We understand.
long-winded, so
We understand. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yes, thank you. Thank you. You're right. Oh, no, she's got 3 books.
Yeah, they're coming up. Yeah, and a screenplay.
That's a really good trait.
You can touch me now.
Okay, everybody.
I'm much more energized now about this.
Okay, there will be, those of you, there will be
I
books.
did perk up for the
The books are going to be signed. Excuse me, everybody who's in the aisle. The books are going to be signed after Ralph's talk. So you might want to, if you get comfortable, and just because we will have a book signing after Ralph's talk. We also have The Art of Weightlessness. And